Hi everyone. I wanted to talk today about the Miss USA pageant that happened this weekend, and I'm so glad that people like me got to see it who are big pageant fans or even just, smaller pageant fans. And it almost didn't get televised because of a certain person's controversial comments that were made a few weeks ago. And I don't want to mention that person's name. He's running for president. You all know who it is, but there's no reason that I need to mention his name. So, you know, people started dropping out of the pageant. Univision dropped it. NBC dropped the pageant. And it was in danger of not being seen at all. And that would have, to me, hurt the contestants, the families, the city of Baton Rouge, which paid a lot of money to host it, and a lot of other people who were involved. And I feel that that's the wrong target. But thankfully, the Reels channel picked the pageant up, and so we got to see it, and I'm so thankful for that. And I was really, more, not so much for me, but for the contestants and their families. They were already down there in Baton Rouge. They get there 2 weeks early usually, and they were down there just arriving when all this hit. So it would have been really unfortunate for them to miss out on that national exposure. And I don't think people really understand, who are not as involved in pageants, how hard these people work to get to that point. I mean, they've gone through multiple pageants over sometimes multiple years, and they have worked really hard. They're usually very accomplished young ladies, and there's just no reason that they should have to be the ones that suffer, I don't feel. So anyway, the pageant happened. Now, what I do ahead of time in this case, now especially with the internet these days, and the advent of being able to watch the preliminary competition even when you're not there in that city. So last Wednesday, the preliminary competition happened, and therefore the 51 contestants, competed in swimsuit and an evening gown. And then actually Thursday, they competed in the interview with the preliminary panel of judges, which we didn't see that part, but we saw the night before. And here's my clipboard, by the way, of my judging of the preliminary competition. And with that, I had, of course, already watched videos of the contestants. I've seen a lot of pictures on the Facebook page and other places, and pretty much knew at that point, of the 51, I had about probably 31 who I was thinking were possible for the top 15. However, after the preliminary competition, I had narrowed it down to 17 out of 51 contestants. So then it came to the actual pageant on Sunday, and I knew, therefore, my 17 that I had in mind. But it doesn't mean that that can't be changed, because to me, one of the most important things is how they present themselves in that first introduction when we see them on stage at the actual pageant. So what I do is I list the people that are even remotely possible as a winner. And in this case, I had, again, about 30, I would say. What that means to me is that those other 20 or so, 21, they are not possible. For instance, this year, Miss Montana, Miss West Virginia, and Miss New Hampshire stood out to me as people that I had rated the lowest on the preliminary competition and other things that I saw. And therefore, those are the kind of contestants that, although strong maybe in their pageant, possibly, they were not possible in my view. And of course, they didn't even remotely get into the top 15. Now, here's a point that I want to make, because I've been to more than one, believe me, local pageant. And it really depends on the quality of the judges, and of course the quality of the contestants. So I've seen, last year for instance, I was at Miss Indiana America, and there were plenty of great contestants, but the judges picked someone who I totally disagreed with, and of course she did not make it into the top 20 at Miss America. She didn't certainly make it into the top 10, therefore. But again, if the judges pick someone who really isn't, in my mind, pageant worthy for that level of a pageant, they don't have a chance. And, obviously they have to pick who they think is best. That's what they're there to do, and that's okay. But, who you pick is going to make the determination of what happens in the national pageant. So back to the national pageant. So after the first part, and of course, I don't watch the pageant live. I watch it about an hour and a half delayed so that I can still be finished about the same time because it was a 3-hour pageant. But I have to be able to stop the DVR and study what these folks are doing. With that, I made my picks for the top 15 right here. And yes, this is handwritten, by the way. That's how real it is. So I made the picks for the top 15 that I felt from all this background work that I did and watching them that evening. And the good news is, because a lot of those judges that were going to be in the pageant dropped out, for instance, singers and celebrities and sports figures, well, they had a panel of judges that were all past winners of Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, or Miss Universe. This was the most perfect judging panel possible because these people really know what it means to win a pageant. And they're not just someone, I don't think half the time the judges have ever even seen a pageant, or if so, they don't care about pageants. They don't know what it really takes to be the best contestant. Now, hopefully they still get a good one, and they do usually, but not, in my opinion, always the best one. This year, I knew that that was not going to be a problem, and it wasn't. So, out of my top 15, and I felt pretty confident with all I had done, 11 of the 15 were chosen by the judges. So that's the best I think I've ever done, I believe. Possibly I'd gotten 12. I'm not sure. I'd have to look back. But anyway, that meant 4 out of the 15 were not my picks that got in. Then we had the swimsuit competition with those 15. And of those 15, of course, I score them as we go. The judges score them too. And then they decide to do a top 10, but actually top 11 because the viewers got to save one person that the judges didn't pick. This year, by the way, that person was Miss Kentucky. And here's the thing. If the judges don't pick you to go through, you're going to have to do extremely well in the next round to even make it to the next cut, or through the next cut. And she didn't. So even though I liked Miss Kentucky, and she was one of my 11, she just wasn't strong enough in the judges' eyes to make it to the next round of the top 5. So as far as the top 11, of those, I picked 8 of those 11. So 8 of the people that I had originally picked moved forward into the top 11. And I want to mention a few at this point. So in the very beginning, before any of this happened, the actual pageant, my top 2 were Miss Texas and Miss Rhode Island. And I wrote that on some, I don't know where it was, either the pageant update board or Facebook or both. But those were my top 2. So obviously they were in the top 15 and the top 11 that I picked. But when we got to that round where we go to the evening gown is the next competition, you got a lot of strong people. This is the top 11 out of 51. So these are not slackers for the most part. Now, there were a few I was not happy with. For instance, Miss Louisiana, who was the hometown girl and therefore has a lot of audience members participating and cheering her on, but she wasn't strong in my opinion at all. Miss Alabama, same thing, didn't like her, shouldn't have been in the top 15 in my opinion. And the other one would have been, let's see, the other one was Miss Michigan that I didn't pick but that got in, and actually I did like her. She just wasn't in my top 15, so I didn't mind her being in that. It's just Louisiana and Alabama I didn't care for. The ones that I did like included Hawaii, Maryland, Delaware, and let's see, Nevada. And New York. I like New York, but she didn't get into the top 11, unfortunately. She was in the top 15, but not the top 11. So then we went through the evening gown, as I said. That was really good. I have to say, I do not like Miss Oklahoma's dress. The bottom half looked like her grandmother made it, maybe. I'm just saying, I don't think that's literally true, but I didn't like it. It had this weird ruffle through the bottom that looked like antebellum kind of style. I don't know. Anyway, here's my picks for the top 5. Miss Texas, Miss Rhode Island, Miss Maryland, Miss Hawaii, and Miss Oklahoma. And of those, they all got into the top 5 except Miss Hawaii. And instead of Miss Hawaii, they put in Nevada. Which, here's the thing. All 5 of these girls were in my top 11. So there's no loss really for me and for these girls. I mean, obviously Miss Hawaii didn't like it. But they were all still 5 of 5 that I picked. So I was really happy with that. Then it was the final question, the question part. So here's the thing. The first set of questions, they each get a question of their own, and that's the judges' questions. They go up, they pick a number, or they pick something, and it's like, oh, this is judge number 3. What's your question? So that's how that round works. That started with, just because she was the first one picked of the 5, Miss Oklahoma, and she had a question that she answered very well, hit it out of the ballpark. Excellent. Then Miss Texas, so-so, not as good. I would say a good answer, but not great. Then Rhode Island. And this is where it got really messed up for her. She was asked a question about Seinfeld's comment on political correctness, and did she agree with it or not, and if not, why? Or if so, why? I don't know if she understood the term political correctness. I think the way she answered the question eventually, because she froze about 10 seconds in, asked for the question to be repeated, which it was, and then she started the exact same way, which was okay, actually, her start. But then she went off on a weird tangent. What she said, and I'm paraphrasing, is, well, we have to wait for the politicians to tell us when to do good and when not to. And then her time ended. So, but that was a hideously awful answer. And right then and there, you knew she was out. And so she was. I mean, as far as winning. Then we move on to Miss Maryland, who is a beautiful lady, by the way, and a model. Stunning, and I'm glad she was in the top 5. However, her answer was, I would say, mediocre. It was very mamby-pamby, we are the world, kumbaya. Her question was about Cuba and about, relationships between the two countries, and I just didn't like her answer. But it wasn't horrible. And when you're in a group of 5 people and 2 people screw their questions up so badly, especially Miss Rhode Island, then you're still standing above 2 people. So the last one was Miss Nevada, and Miss Nevada, her question, I believe, was about race relations. I don't have it in front of me, but she was asked, like, what would you do to improve race relations, or what, and be specific. And she really wasn't, and she froze. She also kind of stumbled and just kind of lost time and smiled, and then was trying to think of what her answer is. I mean, it's a lot of pressure on someone. I don't think people realize, well, you're standing there in front of thousands of people in the auditorium, and the cameras are on you, and everybody's waiting for your answer. If you lose your train of thought, you can just totally lose it and mess up and say something hideous like Miss Rhode Island did. But anyway, Miss Nevada said some things, but they were just, but she really froze up. Then she tried to answer it again later, and that to me was a no-no. But anyway, that's how they did. So really the only one, in my opinion, that did very well was Miss Oklahoma. The other 2, Texas and Maryland, they did good or okay, but not very well like she did. The final question was a common question that they were all asked, and that was sent in from a Facebook fan. So the question was, in 2020, there's going to be a woman put on the $10 bill, an American woman from history, or a woman from American history, and who do you think it should be and why? So that was the question. They all answered. The others had their ears covered so they couldn't hear it. So again, Miss Alabama was, or not Alabama, Oklahoma was first, and she said Harriet Tubman, and she gave some good reasons. Again, very solid answer, good answer. Not that it was Harriet Tubman, but just the reasons and her confidence and the way she stated it, and she looked great. No freezing up. Miss Texas was next, and I totally did not like her answer, and I think immediately to me she had lost the crown right then, because remember, she was my top choice, and I wanted her to win. I think she should have won, but she screwed it up for herself with a not so good answer, but an okay answer in the first section. And now this one, she said, as far as who should be on the $10 bill, well, let's see. There's going to be two women, or there are two women running for president right now, one Republican, one Democrat. So I think we should just wait and see who wins, and then that can be the person. Well, there's a couple problems with that. One, to me, that's not a person in American history. That's a person now. And I don't think we're going to put a living person on the dollar, any dollar bill. Second, you're punting the question by saying that. What's your answer? What's your opinion? Let's not leave it up to the voters. So that's not answering the question to me. So, in my opinion, right then and there, she lost the pageant. And indeed she did. But she still was very strong and did well, and it wasn't a horrible answer in either case. Miss Rhode Island, again, to me, not a good answer. She spoke about, I believe it was the woman who founded either her school or the order of the religion of the school, something like that, but somebody that not that many people would know. So I don't think that's a great answer, but it wasn't as bad as her first one. Miss Maryland said Oprah Winfrey, which again, Oprah Winfrey, love her, a lot of accomplishments, great, but she's currently living, and I don't think a currently living person should be on there. So I don't think that was great. And last but not least, Miss Nevada, I did like her answer this time. She said Rosa Parks, and I think that's a great choice, and she gave good reasons. The only thing that she said that surprised me was she said, as an African American, Rosa Parks was a hero to her, or something to that effect. Honestly, I didn't realize she was African American, so I was surprised. But anyway, that to me sealed the fate of the pageant winner, because the only one who gave two good answers was Miss Oklahoma. So, just so you know, for my picks before they were announced, I had the order as follows. Miss Rhode Island in 4th place, Miss Nevada Miss Rhode Island 4th, Miss Nevada 3rd runner-up, Miss Maryland 2nd runner-up, Miss Texas 1st runner-up, and the winner, Miss Oklahoma. The actual order was Miss Maryland 5th place, or 4th runner-up, and I find that insulting to her, because I'm sorry, but she did better than Miss Rhode Island, and there's just no, and maybe Miss Nevada, so that's why I put her 3rd, but she shouldn't have been 5th. I mean, she had a much better presentation of answers than Miss Rhode Island. And then they put Nevada 4th and 3rd runner-up, and Rhode Island 3rd or 2nd runner-up. And then, of course, it came down to Texas and Oklahoma, which I knew it would, and Texas was this 1st runner-up, so Oklahoma won. So the judges and I agreed, and there's been times, believe me, that the judges and I agreed on the winner. However, it's not that common, because I don't think half the time they know what they're doing when you got celebrities that don't know much about pageants on that judging panel. However, this year, as I said, that was different, and to me, that made all the difference. It was an excellent pageant. By the way, I really enjoyed the hosts, and I enjoyed the musical acts, which was, one group and several singers, and I thought they were excellent, by the way, the singers, and they did such a good job. I just think the pageant went so well. I'd be curious to hear what other people thought, and in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed my take on the 2015 Miss USA pageant, and I'm looking forward to Miss Teen USA and Miss America and Miss Universe still to come later this year. Okay, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.